If you can't figure out how to add effects across multiple clips, this is the video for you. I've got just a simple example here of a little girl playing balloon in a pool, and if you notice the white balance on some of these clips here, it's pretty bad, very, very blue. Just the underwater camera I was using, it didn't have the white balance set right. But the one thing I am not going to do is go to every single one of these clips and add some setting to fix the color balance. I'd like to apply it to the entire video, because generally the color balance is pretty close to being off by the same amount on all of these different video clips. So here's how you do it. You go up to your project assets. This is Adobe Premiere Elements version 13, by the way, but I'm guessing newer versions and even older versions are very, very similar in how you do this. So you go to your project assets. By the very top there's this little funny drop-down list called Panel Options. If you expand that, go down to New Item, there is an adjustment layer. That's what you want to add. So it adds your adjustment layer to your project assets. Just drag this to Video 2 or Video 3 or whatever you have. Just make absolute sure this adjustment layer is above the videos that you want to have the effect applied to. Basically how these renderers work is they start from the top and they work their way down. So they apply this adjustment layer to everything below it. Alright, so enough of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this to the entire width of my video just by dragging the little ends here. Nothing fancy. And then we're going to go into this adjustment layer and we're going to apply an effect. And that's going to apply it to this adjustment layer, which happens to hit all of these individual clips. So we'll go to My Favorites and we'll hit, I don't know, Channel Mixer. And then we can tickle the options here. Now this comes in default. I don't know why it's so high. Maybe it's an example that I had before. I'll just step up the red to 109, values of 109 or so. Now to get an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to toggle the little eyeball on or off, and you can see the subtle balance or the subtle difference in the color balance. Now as I dance my cursor around to other clips, like this one here, notice the color of the legs and the eye and the arms with it on and off, so I'm able to apply that color balance to just about every clip on here. Now some might not be perfect, like this one here. Down at the deep end the color balance will be much different. What I'd like to do is apply the color balance differently at this one particular clip. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get to the beginning of that clip and just hit the page up key. Even though I selected it here, you don't have to hit the select it, just hit the page up to go to the beginning of the clips or the page down. Then with my adjustment layer selected, I'm going to hit this little show hide keyframe control, and it's going to bring up a timeline type control that allows me to set various values at that point in time. So for example, what I want to do is I'm going to remember this setting here, so I'm going to click a little stopwatch, and it's going to be 120. Then I'm going to go to the end of the clip and I'm going to remember that. Now anything in between there I can change and it will affect it just for that point in time. So if I go right here, let's just pick something in the middle here. Let's crank this way up. Notice how I know this is just an example here, how it gets drastically pink, but if I go to the other areas in the clip it's still retained. So what we want to do is go to the very next frame after this marker right here and change it to, I don't know, 130. Maybe that's good enough. Probably have to change some other things here. And we'll go to our next keyframe, and let me get rid of this goofy setting that I put. And then we'll back this off and then go to 130 here. So what's going to happen here is it's going to run 120 everywhere except for this clip here. It's going to crank it up to 130 or so. Now that's probably not the best of white balance there, but you get the idea here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this example shot. Then when you go back to the end of the clip, it'll go back down to the 120. And notice this little indicator up here is when I jump across the clip, it jumps back from its 120 to 130. Alright, so that's just the color balance there. What other things can you apply here? So let's go ahead and experiment around with some other things. Let me add, say, an effect like my image control. And let's crank up the contrast and the brightness. Now, let's just give an example. Let's crank our brightness up just a little bit. and our contrast up and our brightness down, or vice versa. Now if you toggle a little eyeball, you can see the difference that it made. A very subtle difference, but it sort of knocks the that white milky effect out of it. And we can even crank up the saturation a bit as well. Now that's going to apply to every single clip, the same value to every clip. So if you really want to spice up your video, make it annoyingly high saturation, you can do that. It will apply to every single track in here. So that's it. That's how you apply an effect across multiple clips in Adobe Premiere Elements. It sure beats having to apply it to each one of these individual segments down here. So I hope I saved you some time. If I did, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.